Welcome back to another Bolt tutorial. Today we're going to learn all about knowledge graphs and how they differ from your typical Bolt or Supabase database. They're a powerful technology which transforms how we store, connect, and retrieve data. Rather than storing data in tables like you're used to, a knowledge graph uses entities or nodes and then a relationship or edges between those nodes to represent how they're interconnected. We can then add properties onto each of these nodes to add additional information about them. So what are the key benefits of a knowledge graph? Well, firstly, because they have a flexible schema, they don't require a predefined structure. You can add new types of entities and relationships without restructuring the entire database. They have powerful relationship querying. So finding connections is what knowledge graphs do best. Questions like, what do these two entities have in common? Or what's the shortest path between A and B become very simple queries rather than complex joins across multiple tables. It has a good semantic understanding. So knowledge graphs can understand context and meaning very well. They know that Apple, the company, is different from the fruit. And enhanced discovery. By traversing relationships, knowledge graphs enable powerful discovery features like recommendations, pattern detection, insights that would all be difficult to surface with a traditional database. For this demo, we're going to be using the Neo4j knowledge graph database. Now, this is one of the leaders in the industry and they're state of the art with a lot of the things that they do. They offer a free trial, so you're welcome to try. And then also you can continue on a free plan as long as you stay below the usage limits. Once you've created your account, jump over into the developer hub. And here we're going to select JavaScript. With that, we're going to copy the install and connect to database option. And we're going to copy this to our clipboard. Here's our initial prompt. Let's build a graphical user interface for a connected knowledge graph. I want to use Neo4j. In the interface, we should be able to create nodes, add properties to them, and define their relationships. It is important to visualize these nodes and relationships on a canvas. Here are the installation instructions for Neo4j, and we're going to paste what we just copied. Now let's plan it out and we'll build it. Let's go ahead and answer the clarifying questions. We're saying we're going to be using the cloud-hosted Neo4j Aura instance. We said we're going to do dozens to hundreds instead of thousands. And also we're going to call it single user for now. So we'll turn it off plan mode and we'll send off the build. In the meantime, let's jump back over into Neo4j and we're going to set up an instance. Often when you create your account, it'll ask you to do this anyway. We'll download our credentials. Agents finish building, and the first thing it's asking us for is our URI, username, and password. Now, sometimes it may ask you to do this as a secret. In this case, because we've just indicated that it's not a multiplayer session and it's just for us single user, it's added it as a modal and it will be adding it into the project code itself. So let's go ahead and fill out these details. They should have been provided to you when you created your Neo4j instance. So let's go ahead and test this out. Great, looks like it's working. Let's say connect. Great, so it looks like it's set up our interface and now let's test it out. So I can see we've got a node and an edge button. We can't create any edges yet because we haven't made any nodes. Here we go. So it's asking for an entity type. Let's say band. We're going to say the name is the Rolling Stones, being string. Let's add another property. We're going to say genre. We're going to say rock. And if we want, let's try out adding a number. We're going to say year founded, 1962. Now let's create this node. Wow, have a look at that. It's placed it. Rolling Stones is now one of our nodes on our canvas. Now let's test creating another node. This time, let's create a venue. We're going to give it a name. Let's say the Altamont Speedway as a string. Great. So now we have the Rolling Stones and we have a venue. Notice how different colors differentiate between the two. Let's try adding one more node. So now we're going to select band. We're going to say the Beatles. I'm going to add genre, rock and pop. Now we're going to say year founded, 1960, and that's a number. We'll create this node. Fantastic. Now we can see both the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, they have the same color, whereas the venue is more of a green. And both of these are under the band section here. Great. So it looks like Bolt from its very first prompt has been able to set up this Neo4j graph database, and it seems like it's able to add the nodes. Now let's test out the edge function. We'll click on the edge like this. We're going to choose a source. We're going to say the Rolling Stones. Now this is where we define the relationship type. We can say played at, and we're going to say the venue. Great. Create relationship. Just like that, now they are connected. Looks like everything is working smoothly so far. However, there's a bit of a limitation. We're having to manually enter all of this information ourselves, which is fine and usually works. But what if we wanted to supercharge this? Maybe we can leverage the Bolt agent to help populate some of this information. Please do research on famous venues that the Rolling Stones have played at. Add those venues as nodes and create a relationship between the Rolling Stones node and each of these venues. Include the date that they played at them. We'll put it in plan mode. Let's test this out. The Bolt agent has finished doing its research, and look what it's done. It's found all of the famous venues that the Rolling Stones have played at, noting the Marquee Club, Santa Monica Civic, Hyde Park, etc. It's added the ability for us to seed venues. Now, all of the research it's done, it's now added that into the seed venues button, and watch what happens when we click this. There we go. It's populated it now by adding a band called The Rolling Stones, and it's added all of these venues as nodes saying that it's performed at. It's included the country, the city, the name, the type. We can now go ahead and delete this old node, Rolling Stones, without the. We can delete this old venue too. Now, watch what happens when we say the Beatles performed at a few of those venues. Let's go add an edge. Let's say the Beatles performed at. Now let's imagine they've played at Hyde Park. Create relationship. It now adds that string just like this. How about Glastonbury Festival? Let's add that as well. Festival. Create relationship. There we go. So now we can see how the Rolling Stones is connected to the Beatles. They've both played at these same music venues together. You may have several of these edges connecting a variety of different nodes, and by tracking these relationships, you can determine ways that these nodes are related in typically undeterminable ways if you were using a typical database. Now let's jump back into our Neo4j database, and we can see it's updated and added our nodes, our relationship, and our property keys directly here in the dashboard. So when we've made those changes in our Bolt preview, because we've connected it to this database, we're seeing all of this being updated here as well. We may want to refine just to a relationships view, and now we can see all of the 14 performed at relationships. Now let's take this one step further. Let's perform a query on this knowledge graph. So here, notice we can generate our query with AI. So let's go ahead and activate this, and we're going to ask how many bands have performed at Hyde Park. We're going to go ahead and press enter. Now it will generate the query saying it's matching the venue name Hyde Park, and it's going to use that relationship performed at with a band. Now, if we want to run that query, let's go ahead and press run. And here we go. It's returned the number of bands is 2. And that's correct because we've shown that both of these bands have performed at Hyde Park. Now, I'm sure you can imagine as your knowledge base grows and you add more nodes and more relationships between them, and it increases complexity, you can start to ask some really creative queries. And this is where the beauty of a knowledge graph excels over traditional tables in a database. So there we go. In this video, we've covered what a knowledge graph is. We've been able to create our own new instance of the Neo4j knowledge graph database. We've been able to reference that directly here within Bolt, creating our own new nodes and relationships between them, and then visualize it, as you can see here, with a graphical user interface. Now, most of the time, the typical Bolt table database is sufficient for your needs. However, it's worth looking into the pros and cons of a knowledge graph like this and determining if it may be useful for your use case. As always, I hope you found this video useful. Hopefully it's opened your eyes a little bit as to what knowledge graphs are and different types of databases that are out there that you can use. If there's any content in particular that you'd like to learn about, please drop it in the comments below and we'll do our best to get to it. And with that, good luck implementing this in your Bolt project and keep on bolting.